What's this? What is this? There's no logo type. There's no title. Nothing. You don't even know what you're buying if you want to buy this album, do you? I know what it is, of course, because I'm playing on this album. And quite a few of those of you out there probably know what it is as well. I've dressed for the occasion today. So yeah, today's episode was inevitable. Tales of the Vinyl today is going to be about Shining. As I said, I'm playing on this album and I was a member of Shining during a few years. So we'll be delving into quite a few stories, I believe. I will be revealing a little bit why we have a relationship with Shining in the first place, why I joined the band, and ultimately also why I decided to quit. A few of the reasons why I decided to quit. I will not reveal absolutely everything. So if you're one of those who are looking for drama or stuff to be, I don't know, gossip, and for whatever reason, I'm not so much into that kind of stuff, you know. We're all musicians as far as I'm concerned, and I won't be revealing any sordid details, and I won't be backstabbing anybody. I don't think anybody deserves backstabbing, really. I mean, we're all different kinds of dudes, and we're all musicians, as I said. So if you're looking for that kind of scoop, you won't be getting it. But today, yeah. So this is it's Shining. It's X-Varg Utan Flock. That's wolf without a pack. I find that highly ironic, and why I will reveal later in this episode. It is the 10th Shining album. And yeah, let's kickstart this thing.
Kan man se det på ett bra sätt då? Alltså, vi måste se vad vatten kommer ner. Där. Wow. Det var jävligt dumt att göra så att du kollar upp. Det var inte stå den där. Det var inte det. Måste göra rent. Nu kan jag sätta sticken på det här stället. Fattar du med? Så. What's that? Look.
The story starts in 2013. Sterbhaus had just exited a support tour for Vader and Malakesh in the spring of 2013, if I didn't say that already. It's kind of funny because if you didn't know, I'm kind of improvising these episodes, so I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. Just a little bit, you know, but I hope I'll be able to cover quite a lot of neat and terrific ground. Anyway, we exited that tour. We wanted to tour more, so we told our booker that, do you have anything else for us to go to hit the road with, basically, as a support act? And he had a suggestion, and we thought it was a bad idea. I don't remember what the tour suggestion was. It would be awesome to remember it, but I don't. I don't think it was necessarily due to the size of the band. I think it was more whether it would fit, our band or how we sound, stuff like that. And just to put this in perspective, I mean, you are going as a support act on tours, and you're paying shitloads of money, which is actually the support band is actually kind of paying for the tour bus. This is true. So if you're going to concerts and you only see the headline shows, and you're happy that the headliner, that band comes to your town, take the time to actually go see the support act, because they're fronting the money to make this possible, renting the bus and stuff like that. That's how you kind of enable cash flow. Boring details, but it's true. So the support acts, they invest. And why are support acts investing like this? Well, the idea, of course, is to promote yourself, and you want to get as much out of it as possible. So if you go as a support act to a band whose fans are likely to enjoy your band, then it's a win situation. If you go on support for a band and the turnout isn't super, or if the turnout can be great, but the fans for that band can't relate to your stuff, that you're just wasting your time and your effort. And I have a funny story about that, because in, I think it was 1995 or 1996, I went to see one of my favorite bands, which is Blind Guardian. Now, they had released this one, and they weren't in Stockholm for that one. They came to Stockholm for this album, and they brought along a support act, which I don't remember either. And it was totally shitty, and everybody hated it. And you can see it by the look on the faces of the band. They thought that situation sucked. And just another funny detail on this show, for all of you who think we people who deal in extreme metal cannot enjoy decent, I don't find this to be necessarily power metal. I know it's kind of labeled as that. I find it more to be heavy metal, speed metal, and stuff like that. I met an acquaintance on that show, which was Themgoroth, the vocalist at the time in Dark Funeral. So he was there with his girlfriend at the time, I think. And so if you find that people within the black metal scene can't enjoy decent old Blind Guardian, then you're completely wrong. So there you are. I love Blind Guardian. It's not supposed to be about Guardian this episode. So as you see, I'm going to be trailing off a little bit. So I'll try to rope myself in and get back to the topic. Like I said, we were offered a tour package as a support slot, a buy-on as it's called, and we weren't particularly interested in it. I think it was due to that it didn't necessarily fit what we were doing. And the booker said, well, I'm working on this thing with Shining, but I don't know if that's your cup of tea. And we said, hey, that's terrific. Shining would be great. And we were probably the only ones who thought that. Because as soon as that whole package started to become official, a lot of people were like, what's this all about? What kind of a tour package is this? You got this fairly unknown joke band from Stockholm. That's a hint to a previous Tales of the Vinyls episode. And then you have Shining, that's the exact opposite with the misery and the cutting yourself in the arms and wanting to commit suicide, feeling bad about yourself and feeling bad about the world, disconnection, whatever Shining is kind of about. Now, we certainly didn't see it that way. We thought the expression was kind of the same. It was two sides of a coin, because it's all about the kind of the dedication, I suppose, and the expression in itself, two different paths. And we were right as well. I mean, as soon as we stepped onto that bus and a few shows in, the Icebreaker show, the first show on that tour that we eventually got on with Shining in late 2013, were in Berlin. And I went to that venue as a tourist about a year ago. And here's a picture of that. So the tour kicked off in Berlin, and we got along swimmingly in the bus, and the shows and everything was terrific. On that tour bus, this is important, was a dude that we met for the first time. And he is involved in the kind of, I don't know if it's forgotten now, but there's a documentary, a Shining documentary, that's been in the works for quite some time. I know there's no deadline set, so don't bug me with details about when this documentary might be released, because I just don't know. On this tour bus was the documentary filmer, the filmmaker Martin Strandberg. And this is one of those epic moments, those, turning the tide moments, when you meet someone that becomes very important to the band, and actually very important to me. He's one of my absolute best friends since the end of 2013. The tour ended, we went our separate ways. And Sterbhaus was in a situation where we needed a third video for the album Angel for Breakfast and God for Lunch. We knew the song was going to be absolutely Do Not Die, but we were in a sticky situation here, because up until then, we had worked with two guys who Jimmy went to school with. They had kind of just started their production company. I don't know if it's active anymore. They call it Bright Bear, I think. We started off with a first video a long time ago when the band was was a demo band, when Sterbhaus was a demo band. That was for the song Sinister Neck Grip. Now, that was truly a trial and error kind of effort. I don't think we paid for it. And the second video we did was a little bit more of a decent affair, and that was House of the Dead Dwarf. That was terrific. That was just great. It was fun to work with these guys, and this video was everything we kind of hoped it to be. That all changed by the time we made a third video, which was for Frog Boiler. Actually, that's our fourth video, because we went to Chile and recorded a video for Insecticide. So our fourth video was, okay, we're back in Sweden, we need to record another video, and that was then for Frog Boiler. And by that time, these guys had sort of come to the conclusion that they come up with a sort of a budget or whatever that they needed, which was a little bit more pricey maybe than we could afford at that time. So we realized that, okay, we can only film this for one day. That day turned out to be 36 hours, something like that, which was probably why it was a grueling experience, and they weren't really into this. It was obvious. The experience of making that video was not a nice one, and we exited that knowing that, okay, this was the last time we could do a video with these guys. So when it came down to us making a new video, we didn't really have we couldn't continue with these guys. But I mean, we had met Martin on the Shining tour. So we were like, let's check with that dude. He was terrific. Let's see if he's interested. And I think from that moment is probably when when it was obvious that we were always going to be working with Martin. So yes, Shining is kind of responsible for us meeting Martin Strandberg, the dude who's been involved with basically every video production we've done since, be it live videos or most everything. He's kind of involved in this one as well, because we split the costs of this weird microphone that I'm recording the sound on. So yeah, he's involved with everything. That's that. Now, Of course, the story doesn't end there. That's how we met Martin. We worked with him, and he became kind of the reason we still had some sort of ties to Shining due to that documentary. Because in 2015, I think that was late 2015, might be early 2016. I'm not a little bit sketchy on the details here. Martin wanted to film some interviews with Niklas Kvarfort in Stockholm, and his suggestion was to film that in the Sterbhaus rehearsal space because we had this terrific bar, and it looked absolutely super. It was all black, which eventually was the reason why he probably scrapped that footage. It just became too dark and wasn't really what he was looking for. But what happened was we met up with Niklas in Stockholm. We went to our rehearsal space in the southern suburbs of Stockholm. I think I actually lived in that rehearsal space by that time. I was kind of in between residence for a brief period. That brief period was expected to be like 2 or 3 months. It turned out to be almost 2 years, weirdly enough. I thought it was a brilliant time, though. Terrific to have a moment in your life when you're living like a slob. So anyway, we went to our rehearsal space, the Sterbhaus rehearsal space. They recorded some parts for the documentary that Martin's probably not going to use, and we partied the rest of the time. And by that time, I think Niklas let it slip that he needed to do a lineup change in Shining. And I said to him, if you want someone to solve your bass situation, I can do that for you. And that's exactly what happened a few weeks or months after this meeting. He called me up and said that, okay, if I do this now, can you commit to doing all the live shows and the tours and the festivals and all that stuff that we have booked for about 2 years forward? And I said, yes. Now, the interesting part. Why did I say yes? It might sound like it's a no-brainer because I'm a huge fan or something like that. I am not a huge fan of Shining. I wasn't a huge fan of Shining up until then. It wasn't something I disliked. It was just not a band that I listened to. I had bought one album, and that was the 5th album, which is, of course, Halmstad. I thought that was a brilliant album. When I heard other stuff they released, it was just not kind of my bag. I didn't really care much for it. So why was I keen on joining Shining at this point? Well, there are quite a few reasons. At this time, Sterbhaus had hit a total rut. Our festivals got cancelled, our tours got cancelled. It was just total rubbish for us, and we found ourselves in a situation where we couldn't do anything. And as soon we couldn't even get new bookings because the album was getting too old. And I was working myself silly. So here you got a band that's asking me, do you want to play with us? And just play with us. In Sterbhaus, I have to do basically everything. And I thought, well, that's a terrific opportunity for me to just be a bass player. I thought that was great. I, of course, said yes because, come on, I remember the tour in 2013. I liked hanging out with all these guys. You have 3 weeks with people that you really connect with. I thought that was terrific. So, yeah, I'll certainly do that. I also noticed that Shining, despite of whether I kind of super liked their music, I certainly liked their bass lines and especially their approach to the bass as an instrument. So I thought that was terrific as well. But one of the main reasons actually connects to this album. I don't think I've told anyone this before, but it actually ties to this album, Tiamat's Wild Honey. And by the time before it was released, now to tell you this little sidetrack story, I have to tell you about a musical store. A store where you buy instruments in Stockholm. It was called Estrad. And it is the store where I bought this bass. I've had it since about 1996. No, yeah, probably something like that. And it's my go-to instrument. I still, every Shining show I ever did, I played on this bass. It cost a fortune. And I could afford it because of heritage money, really. And my view was, okay, I want to buy one absolutely terrific instrument that solves everything. And that one really does. That's a Warwick thumb bass. I have to show you it again. Here you go. It's this sort of neck through thingy. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful Warwick bass. And to be honest, I owe Ted Lundström of Amon Amarth the fact that I found that bass, because this is another side track. The thing is, in the early 90s, we went to school together. I went to school together in Tumba with what became the band Amon Amarth. They had another band at that time called Scum. I don't remember if it might actually be pre-Scum even. But I played in a local another death metal band. I think this was 91 or something like that. And we all kind of hung around backstage, all the bands, of course. And we talked a lot about bass, and because he's a bassist too. And he told me that, you have to check out this store Estrad with their bass guitars, because they got these Warwick basses, and it's like you touch them and you're a god immediately. And I went there and I totally fell in love with that bass. I kind of fell in love with a 6-string version of that bass, which I had my eye on at first. Now I ended up not buying the 6-string, which I'm super happy for, because four strings are quite enough for me. Anyway, so that's a sidetrack to that. Now, from what I remember, when you went into the store, there was this, this board where you put up notes. If you have a band and you're looking for a new member, you look for the new member there. Now everything, you put up ads and you put up stuff on the internet, but this was pre-internet. So even larger bands or bands that were to become quite big looked for members here, and this is where Tiamat comes into place. Now, I think this was a few years after I had, maybe 1 year after I had quit this death metal band that I was playing in by that time, called Ethnocide. I got into speed metal and neoclassical metal and stuff like that. That was itching. That was satisfying my itch. So I started rehearsing with a buddy of mine, and by that time, I went into Strad and I saw this note. Tiamat was looking for a bass player. And I was like, should I apply or should I not? Now, this if we should look a little bit on the discography of Tiamat, this was after they had released this album, which is Clouds. And I didn't like that album at all, actually. I thought it was a little bit corny. I loved this one. I saw Tiamat at a place called Vita Villan or Vita Huset or something like that, north of Stockholm, which was one of those places, every band that eventually turned out to be something kind of played there. At the Gates played there, and Tiamat played there when they had released their first album, Sumerian Cry, isn't it? I do have that on vinyl as well. I was lazy not getting it. And another reference actually with Sumerian Cry. I actually bought that vinyl from Equimanthorn, the drummer of Dark Funeral, on that first full-length album, Secrets of the Dark Arts, isn't it? Anyway, that bunch of references here. But anyway, there we go. I saw this note. I was thinking, should I apply or should I not? And I came to the conclusion that I shouldn't apply. Now, because I didn't really like clouds, and I was kind of happy to play with my buddy. We were sitting in my room at home and just jamming, and I thought that was terrific because that was making me develop as a musician quite a lot more than it had done when I played death metal. So I wasn't really interested in that. Now, luckily, of course, I don't think I would have gotten the job. Come on, because if I'm not mistaken, I think the bass player on this album wrote the song Gaia, which is the big hit on that one. So I don't think I would have gotten the job anyway. But it's stuck with me my whole life, that kind of missed opportunity. And I promised myself that if I ever got another opportunity like that, I wouldn't just say no. I would really look into if I might actually want to do this. Or if I don't necessarily super want to do it, at least try it out. But not trying is the first step to total failure. So I thought that, well, if another offer like that comes along, I'm going to say yes. And I said yes to tagging along on the Shining journey. Now, just to make it clear, I wasn't offered a slot as a member at that time, but it was about solving these shows. So, but eventually, I think we did the festival, some festival shows. My first show with Shining was actually at the largest show we ever did with Shining, which was at this Belgian festival, Grasspop. That was, and we didn't rehearse in Shining. You got your songs, learned this, and then you kind of met members almost on stage for the first time, and then you did the show. It went swimmingly well, and we went on tour in the States. And I think it was during that tour run in the United States, the first one, that I got the offer, like, okay, if you want to be a member, then you're in. And I said yes. So there you are. That's how I joined Shining. What I thought I'd talk about a little bit in this episode is the recording of this album. Let me dig it up once more. X-Varg Utan Flock, the 10th album with Shining. And to start this tale off, I have to go on another wild goose chase to tell you a pre-story to make this entertaining and fun. And that is, like I mentioned in one of the other Tales of the Vinyl episodes, I, of course, had a daytime job during this time. I had a pause because I really wanted to focus on Sterbhaus for a few years. And so I lived as a bum and focused a lot on that. But eventually the funds ran out and you have to have a job. I had some really shitty jobs for about a year. And then I got a really terrific job. I loved that job, actually. I stuck with that job for about a decade. It wasn't terrific for a decade. It was terrific for 5 years. Anyway, and then you're stuck. What happened was that this employer sent me to Utrecht in Holland to work. It was for a well-known coffee company. And I worked there for about 1.5 years, on and off, going from Sweden to Utrecht. And the funny thing here is my employer, they paid for the flight ticket back and forth to from your home or from where you needed to go, which is probably the important thing, where you needed to go to Utrecht. And a lot of the times, I didn't go home. So I got my employer, this coffee company, to pay for a lot of flights going to festivals and tours, and they paid taxis to get me to the studio to record this one. I went to Utrecht directly to Gothenburg, and I think it was Gothenburg, and then you had a taxi ride, and they paid for all that because they were committed to, okay, we need to get you to Utrecht, and we need to get you home. And if home is not your home address at that point, that didn't bother them, which is kind of funny. So they paid for a lot of flights. Now, another funny thing is that during my time in Utrecht, while I was working there, we actually auditioned Charles Hedger, who you might know from Mayhem. He auditioned to be a standing guitarist for a few live shows, and he turned out to be playing as a member, full-time member in Shining on the album after X-Varg Utan Flock, after I quit. So, and the funny thing was, I think it was a total of 3 members, apart from me, were residents of Holland at that time. So we actually got along in Utrecht and rehearsed. And I got my employer to thank for that as well. But to get back to the recording of this one, it's recorded in Andy LaRocque's studio, Sonic Train, much as quite a few albums prior to this one, and the album that came after that as well. Andy LaRocque, of course, is the guitarist of King Diamond. He shouldn't need an introduction. We all know him. We all adore him. We all look up to him and all that. So I thought it would be absolutely terrific to go and meet him for the first time and record in his studio. I am not that accustomed to being, starstruck, meeting your old idols. As far as I'm concerned, we're all colleagues in different kinds of ways. We're playing music, we're playing in different bands. Some have started earlier than you, had a greater success than you. They might have a certain talent that you truly admire. But in the end, I bet you yourself have talents as well that people would look up to, maybe. So anyway, I went to the studio directly from work, and we started tracking bass. Not much to say about that. I'll sort of segue a little. I'll talk a little bit more about the bass in a moment. What the hell? Let's talk about it right now. The reason I think this is really important for Sterbhaus, apart from the fact that I played on it, is that my creative position in Shining at this point is directly responsible for how I treated this album as a producer, as a songwriter, and especially as a bass player. Now, being recruited in a renowned band like Shining that has already a profile, and I kind of had the viewpoint from the start that, okay, I'm not going to maybe contribute that much in the songwriting section. I was invited to be completely honest. It's not like they forbade me. They said that absolutely, if you write a lot of stuff, write music for Shining, that's okay. Now, first of all, I wasn't interested in doing that because it meant me completely writing something that I don't normally write, just to fit someone else's vision. So that felt like I can do it. I've done it before. I did it in the start when we started Sterbhaus, actually. When Sterbhaus started off, the band was supposed to be like At the Gates. I don't listen to At the Gates, but I heard how the other guys were making riffs. And I sort of wrote music in the same kind of vein. And I could do the same for Shining if need be. But I didn't kind of see the point. As a bass player in this position, I was just curious to see, okay, how does this band work? How does this band record an album? How do this band does or do? You know your grammar, but then you say something that sounds totally stupid. How does Shining work when it comes to new music? And I got a lot of pre-production demos. A lot of bands, we certainly do pre-production demos in Sterbhaus as well. And I got pre-production demos that sounded great, kind of. I know that bass in Shining is a lot about being to contradict Yngwie Malmsteen. Less is more. How can less be more?
How can less be more? It's impossible. More is more.
Less is more is kind of a thing in Shining. So I got these pre-production demos where less was certainly more in the bass section. I was kind of listening to it and said, okay, I'm just going to rehearse this. I'm going to write a few minor things maybe and see if that sticks. But a main difficulty with these pre-production demos that I got from Shining was that there was no vocals and there were no solos. So you got these long songs that were basically, they were just conveying a sort of an idea or whatever. And I didn't know how to relate that to that. So I thought, well, I'll play as the pre-production demo is. And that's what I did. And apparently that's what Niklas wanted as well, because in the studio, he didn't ask for more. We sort of came up with some minor things, extra stuff. He had some extra ideas that he picked up while we were recording, and you record that. But basically, it's quite simple bass. But in all honesty, I was greatly understimulated as a musician. Now, that's not to any fault in Shining, and it was one of the main reasons why I eventually quit. And I saw a reviewer just recently for this album. I get to show it every now and then like this. And he said something like that. I basically quit Shining to make that album happen. I hadn't really viewed it like that, but there's a good chunk of truth in that. Eventually, the Next Akin to Chaos album would probably not have happened if I had stayed in Shining. And it certainly wouldn't have sounded the way it did. Actually, this album with Shining is hugely responsible for me wanting to sort of, spread my wings creatively. So, yeah, we tracked the bass in about a week. I actually bought a fretless bass. It's over there on my wall, but I'm not going to pull it out and show you. It's a Warwick as well. It's fun that I get to watch something and you don't get to see it. Anyway, I kind of bought that because I wanted to have a fretless bass, but I never had the opportunity to actually have a reason to buy it. Now we were recording with Shining, and there was fretless bass being used on previous recordings, and I thought, okay, here's my chance. So I bought it, and we ended up not using it at all. No, we actually used it for one song, and it was some weird rockabilly, rock and roll cover song or whatever that I was mimicking a standing bass, and I was doing that on the fretless bass. I got to use it a lot on Next Akin to Chaos with Sterbhaus in the song, the terrifically named song, Nowhere in the Bible Does Jesus Have a Sword Fight. if I'm supposed to tell you one funny story about the recording sessions, because it was certainly fun in a lot of ways, I have to tell you the story about me playing tambourine. And the thing is, I kind of suck at percussion instruments. I'm really suck at playing drums. I'm terrible at that. I don't have that in my blood. I kind of understand how drums work, and I can write drums, but I can certainly not playing. And the same goes for percussion instruments. So kind of tambourines and triangles or gurka or whatever they're called, then it's not my forte. Anyway, so we were kind of, I think it was probably the same song. I was playing that fretless bass where I was trying to mimic a standing bass. They wanted to have tambourine on that one. And they said, Andy LaRocque said, you need to go in and play tambourine. And I said, well, I kind of suck at tambourine. It doesn't matter. We'll fix that. So I went into that recording room, with putting your earphones on, and I'm trying to make this thing work, playing tambourine, hitting your palm and shaking and doing something that sounds rhythmic or good. And then seeing Andy LaRocque on the other side, and it was, if I could have ever imagined this, my teenage Marcus in the late 80s, listening to all these old King Diamond albums, if I could I even possibly imagine myself being in this situation, playing tambourine like a total twerp, or not nailing it, and being ordered to play tambourine by Andy LaRocque, and he's sitting on the other side there. It was just a stupid and hilarious situation. It was just like, this is so weird. Well, this episode is going to last forever. This episode's going to last forever. So let's wrap it up. Well, I'm not going to wrap it up. You know me. I have so much to tell, and you have so much interest to listen to me, don't you? Actually, I can bring this one up again. Let's see if I can find it. Where we have it. Yeah. The previous episode with Tales of the Vinyl. That's the mighty Crimson Glory. And I decided not to talk too much about it. And I even blurted out the obnoxious comment that I didn't have time for this. The reason was because I was knee-deep in work with the very last music video with Sterbhaus, and it's been out now for about a month or so. That's Whippersnapper.
I woke up angry again today. There's not much left of yesterday's play. When I'm not halfway through, I'm being strangled. One fat squirrel I down to two. We're fighting with fantasies, never easy for me. It wasn't even learned to some degree. While barking there off the wrong tree. Thanking psychology.
So we can certainly talk a little bit more about videos, since we met Martin Strandberg due to playing with Shiny. But before we start to look at that, I just wanted to kind of mention, since I've talked a little bit about bass and bass lines, the bass lines on this is a huge inspiration. And it's one of those albums that, for me, sticks with you your whole life. And it's the kind of staccato treatment he does with the drums and these little weird stuff that always happens, much like Jethro Tull, actually, in a more rhythmic, weird way, 70s Jethro Tull. So I just wanted to bring that up. So that's a sort of segue back to the previous episode, just to make everything even more confusing. But I wanted to mention it. I truly think that Crimson Glory's transcendence relates to Sterbhaus due to the bass lines on Next Akin to Chaos. Like I mentioned, Martin Strandberg, we did our first video with Martin, which was absolutely Do Not Die. You could say that Whippersnapper is a sequel to this video. Story-wise, the songs are certainly not related. But it's not just a bunch of, it's obvious you got a lot of crows in Whippersnapper. And you got a lot of crows in Absolutely Do Not Die. Now, the little girl in Absolutely Do Not Die, the actress there is 7 years old, and that character is actually the same character that is featured in Whippersnapper. And it's not just the same character, it's the same actress. So that's 12 years later on, and when she pulls off that mask in the end, that's why we have that scene. We want to tell you that this was actually the same actress. We can talk a little bit more about why I decided to quit Shining now. I mentioned a lot of it previously. I think that's the bulk of it, actually. The main reason was the creative direction and the creative outlet for me as a musician, whether that aligned with the Shining's visions or not. I remember distinctly going to stay with Niklas during Christmas. We celebrated Christmas in Finland just prior to me quitting. And we actually had a great time, more or less. We talked about the stuff he wanted to do and toyed around ideas and possible changes that The Shining might need to go through. A lot of changes that didn't happen, fortunately, I have to say. But a lot of the visions and the ideas he was toying around with, I didn't feel like that was my expression at all, something I was even keen on being on board with. And I didn't say that. And I think I was in the right to not say that, because Shining is one person's main vision, and an artistic entity. I'm not much for, even though Sterbhaus has always been democratic, democracy in music and art is not usually a really great idea. If you have a specific vision, you need to be able to realize that. You can't dilute that vision. And I felt that if I should even say anything about this, I'm diluting this band's vision, and especially his vision. And I didn't think that was appropriate. Soon obvious that the things I was doing for Sterbhaus was something that Shining wanted in that band as well. I remember distinctly, showing the live footage from our Göta Källare show, which we released as a live album. All that live footage, for instance, which we recorded in Sterbhaus to have some decent live footage instead of just people, filming in the crowd. And having shown that to Niklas, he said that I want the same thing. So eventually, I kind of was asked to shoulder roles like management for a short period and stage production. And I was booking flights and all these things all the time. And it dawned on me, I don't know how to phrase this correctly, but Sterbhaus didn't suffer from any sort of dysfunction, really, and everything could be handled in Sterbhaus quite well. But for various reasons, it was very hard to do so in Shining, and it was close to impossible sometimes, especially when it came to the visions of actually, elevating what was going on. So I figured that, well, I got this thing that's working with Shining and with Sterbhaus, and I'm asked to do the same thing with Shining, and it's not really working, and it was kind of frustrating. And eventually it just came down to, okay, either I'm just the bass player. I'm kind of not part of the band at all. There are tons of other reasons for me leaving, and I think they should probably remain in the shadows to add to the mystery or whatever. So there we are. We had a Tales of the Vinyl episode about X-Varg Utan Flock. Oh, I need to tell you one other funny thing. Actually, we're just about to wrap things up. And no, we're not finished. Okay. There's a certain irony to this album and the title. Our first single on this album, the terrific Next to Kin to Chaos, is the Deth Bü Wolfe. And if you didn't know, I pour a lot of energy and thought into my lyrics. And the lyric is actually a huge turd sandwich to the Disney Satanism and of the heavy metal community, and how apparently purchasing a Bathory t-shirt or a Venom t-shirt automatically makes you true. Makes you, if you stick a pentagram or an upside down cross into your logotype, then you sell. And the labels are super interested in you. I despise this kind of thing. It becomes watered out. It becomes just ridiculous. It's mimicking. I hate that stuff. There were a bunch of black metal bands early on. I think Destroyer 666 was probably one of those bands that first started fooling around with wolves. And wolves became the coolest thing ever when Watain hit it big. And soon in the wake of Watain's success, there came a lot of bands that, and everything was about wolves. And I thought that was super funny and pathetic, actually. So Deth Bü Wolfe is about that. And lo and behold, Deth Bü Wolfe was, of course, written before this album was recorded. And then when Niklas says the album is going to be called X-Varg Utan Flock, which is wolf without a pack, I just laughed and thought, well, that's irony for you. I'm trying to make fun of this phenomenon, and suddenly I'm part of it, whether I like it or not.
Lo and behold, there he would stand on his own, proud and his own. And now the darkness is alive, with the infant children of the night. It's watered out, but still a fire is burning in the bright but very light.
Hey, I want to include another thing, and I'm putting it at the end of this episode so you get to listen to it. It's a pre-production demo version of Deth Bü Wolfe. And the story behind this is quite fun, because by the time I was out playing a lot with Shining, we decided in Sterbhaus to record a 3-track demo, pre-production demo, but have it like professionally mixed to sort of try to get Sterbhaus out of its rut and to have something to show potential partners or labels or whatever. So we recorded 3 songs. And those songs are Deth Bü Wolfe, it's The Evildoer of Pixelville, which was untitled, didn't have a title by that time. And then we had another song, which is Whippersnapper, but it wasn't called Whippersnapper. It was called Lord Duckling King Turtle, obviously from Game of Thrones. Now, there is a Shining story related to this pre-production demo, which is why I'm bringing it up. And that is when this demo, pre-production demo, was being mixed by Ronny Björnström, he was sending us files to check, basically the mixes. And the first mix I ever got, I was in a hotel room, I think it was in France, and I was sharing this room with Peter Huss. He was lying on the bed beside me and fiddling with his phone, I believe, and I was fiddling with my phone. And I got the files, and I said, well, can I just listen to this? And he was like, yeah, sure. And Peter he really liked it, actually, and said something like, it sounds a little bit like Megadeth, but in a good way. So, in fact, Peter was definitely the first person ever to hear anything from what would eventually become Next to Kin to Chaos. It was the first one. outside of the band. Now, a few weeks after that, we were in this little van going in Finland. The whole band shining in the crew and the tour manager as well. And we were going to a festival on some island, I believe. You had to ride a ferry there. And I had the speaker with me. And of course, I put on the pre-production demo. I was proud of it. I remember distinctly the reaction, especially of our tour manager. He was like, "What the hell were you listening to?" And I said it was Sterbhaus. And he loved it. So, yeah, that's that. Now, to make this a little bit more fun, here is the pre-production version of Deth Bü Wolfe. It's watered out, but still the fire is burning in the bright of Syria. Now in this circle of fire lives a wolf so dire. We doubled up the goats and as the fool admire this coming of an age, not knowing half of all its worth. And so it all begins again with the fire of a second birth. Lo and behold, a darkest brightest day dragging the fair in its wake. And now the darkness is alive in the infant children of the night. It's watered out, but still the fire is burning in the bright of Syria. Symbols and art, what's crafted well to dispel just an ilk of what you are. Soulless aspiring to be what you are. I wonder who
Chasing daughters and orders of